Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Blue Collar Real Estate. I'm Greg Mayo.
And I'm Ryan Herget. And Greg, I'm excited for this episode. You and I have been talking about this episode for a little while. We got off on a few tangents before we even started the show about how excited we are to bring everybody the YouTube It special on Blue Collar Real Estate. This is going to be a fun episode.
It really is. I can't wait to dig in. What have you been doing with yourself?
Well,
we got some stuff here we're going to talk about that you can do, right? But I want to know what you've been doing.
All right. So what I have been doing, real estate's actually not died. I've been busy. Thankfully, we've actually helped 3 people with brand new homes over the last week. So we're getting ready to put their homes on the market. Things haven't stopped with all the craziness going on. So we've been busy, which gets me out of the house. So I've got a little bit more of a normal routine, but my hands are completely Lysol wiped. Apparently, you're not supposed to use those on your hands. And so my disinfectant efforts have gotten excessive, but nevertheless, things have been good. Things are, obviously crazy like they are for everybody right now. But I've also, which kind of inspired this episode, I've recently installed a trailer hitch and wiring harness on my wife's Jeep.
Nice.
All from watching YouTube videos. And everything worked. We went out and did a test run the other day. So everything's working just fine. Didn't fall off. Retighten the bolts like the YouTube video said to. So that's what I'm excited about, is there's some really cool YouTube videos. And I feel a lot of people just say, oh, I could never do that. Right. Well, we're here to bring you the episode from your house's perspective, real estate perspective here. What are the things maybe you can take on yourself? And what are some of the things maybe, even after watching YouTube, you still may want to call somebody on, right?
Right. And one of the things you definitely need a professional for is, of course, your mortgage, which brings us into a really, really awkward segue into our sponsor, Stacy Mayo and the Scott Miller team at Ruoff Mortgage. She's working from home, like I've said the last couple of episodes, and so am I. And she's continuing to rock and roll. Yeah. They're busy. I'm still busy. I'm not as busy as I would expect to be right now in the first week of April. But still busy and still doing stuff, occupying myself in the garage. I started writing again on my second novel.
Nice.
And made some progress on that because there's only so much you can do just sitting in the house. Only so many times you can do the dishes, right? My hands are all jacked up too. Can you see that? Is that too much? So that's kind of fun. And I started doing a blog. And I've not posted it. The whole point of it is to kind of chronicle what I'm going through right now, right?
The journey.
So that my kids and my now 3 grandkids can look at that someday and remember sort of what it was like during this really weird time. But enough of that. My current novel, which is in publication, I will link it in the bottom because why not?
Because you may as well.
I might as well. But anyway. So I was outside yesterday, walking around. I cut down our ornamental grass. I trimmed up a couple of the trees, and I thought, we really need to talk to folks about what they need to be doing for spring projects around the house.
Yeah, I mean, truly, it's nice out. We're here in central Indiana, and yesterday was 65 degrees. I got some nice outside work done. It was just a nice day out. And, there was a lot of people outside working, naturally keeping their distance. And when they walk by, it's that awkward, should I even acknowledge you? Because this is weird moments. But nevertheless, there's a lot of people out and looking to do things. I think a lot of people are getting that cabin fever, but also taking things pretty seriously as well and keeping distances. So let's kind of start looking up on the top of the house. Okay. We're in spring right now, right? And it's windy. It was windy as hell 2 days ago here in Indiana. And there's a lot of shingles that are blown off roofs, right? There's a lot of tree branches that are down, or like now maybe rubbing and, scratching the roof surface, which makes your roof wear out even faster. There's a lot of leaves that maybe people didn't get cleaned out of their gutters coming out of the fall, things that create bigger problems, foundation problems, which we'll dive into as well. So we wanted to, just kind of talk about, are some of these things that maybe you can take on yourself. I can personally tell you that, roofing, while it's a trade that, it's not overly difficult, it does require a degree of bravery to get up on your roof and, be careful doing that. It's, there's certainly an element of danger that exists with roofing that maybe it's not for you if you're not experienced doing things like that. But if you've got one shingle that's off and your roof pitch is relatively low, maybe that's a project you can watch a YouTube video on and learn how to do that. It's not that difficult of a project, and you can certainly save yourself some money, especially the same thing with cleaning out your gutters and downspouts, right, Greg?
Well, yeah, and I tell you a big thing. People clean out their gutters in the fall, and then they think, well, they're good till next fall, and they're not. This time of the year, you don't realize over the winter, because you're not outside that much, how much debris and stuff builds up. One of the biggest things for water inside a basement and a crawl space, as you know, Ryan, is downspouts that don't exit from the house and far enough away from the house.
You're
right?
1,000% right. I'm going to harp on this for anybody that's listening right now, and hopefully everybody takes huge note of this. And that is, if you don't get the water away from the foundation of your house, if you are in that house for 5 years and do nothing about it, you're going to have a problem. Okay. And I'm helping 3 people literally at this exact same time dealing with this problem right now. And 2 of them are on slabs and 1 of them's on a crawl space. And all 3 of them are dealing with problems that are thousands of dollars that can be avoided by doing exactly what Greg's talking about. Just getting the water away from the house, which starts up top, cleaning out your gutters, making sure that things are flowing properly, because the amount of rain that's going to fall over the next 2 or 3 months in most parts of the country, it's a huge amount. And if you don't get that water away from your house over time, and 5 years is a lot of time for there to be a lot of problems, water gets in, it freezes, it thaws, and it creates a massive long-term problem that costs you thousands of dollars when now you're trying to sell your house. And that's ugly money, like you always like to call it, Greg.
Right.
You have to spend because you didn't do a little bit of preventative maintenance. So anyway.
And one of the easiest things you can do when you clean the gutters to make sure the downspout is clear all the way down is just take a gallon milk jug, fill it with water, get up there, while you're cleaning, and just dump it right into the downspout. Mm-hmm. I tell people this all the time. If it doesn't exit rapidly out the bottom, you've got a clog. And the reason that's important, no matter how far your downspout extends away from the house, if the water's not getting to that point, it's going to back up right there, like you said, with all this rain we're going to have, and it's going to overflow right on the corner of your foundation. Mm-hmm. So something very important to check. The next thing we need to talk about while we're outside is siding and exterior trim, right?
No doubt. No doubt. This is one of those things that, again, over time, if your house has wood trim or wood siding, that stuff, if it does not get painted appropriately, if it doesn't get maintained appropriately, it certainly creates a lot of wood rot around windows, around siding, around trim. So just exterior maintenance goes a long way. And that is something as simple as power washing mildew off the north side of your house, which is going to happen in most parts of the country, right? Where the, that siding of a house doesn't get as much sunlight on it. You get a lot of mildew that builds up. So, taking the time right now to do that, go get a power washer, rent a power washer and get that kind of stuff done, because those are the types of things that if, again, you're thinking about selling your home in a year or 2, you want to have that stuff done anyway.
Absolutely. And so we've gone from the roof, we've gone down through the siding and trim, we've inspected that, we've cleaned it where necessary. So let's talk about the foundation a little bit.
Oh man, foundations are like my Achilles heel right now in real estate.
But keep in mind, from a homeowner standpoint, you walk around the perimeter and you look at the outside, especially if you've got either a block foundation or a brick foundation, right? And what are we looking for?
You're looking for, in a block or a brick foundation, you're looking for, the massive cracks. You're looking for mortar deterioration. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's the space between blocks or bricks where that mortar starts to crack or starts to fall apart. You're also looking for like shaling brick, shaling brick, meaning, the face of the brick is starting to like pop off, and you'll see that a lot on chimneys. You'll see that, less commonly on foundations, but it does exist on foundations as well, obviously. So, those are a few of the things that you're looking at, when we're talking about the foundation. If you happen to be on a crawl space or on a basement, having somebody get down there and really do a thorough examination of that. It's not a bad idea to have somebody down in your crawl space every single year, right?
When I was a home inspector, I used to tell people, get down in your crawl space every 6 months, in the spring and in the fall. Look for water leaks, look for leaks around your toilet if your wax rings failed. look for bad piping, anything. But and I would venture to guess that maybe 1 in 20 actually did it.
Well, it's kind of like changing the air filter on your furnace, right? It's kind of the same thing. It's one of those things that's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And if by doing it once every 6 months at least, or once every 3 months, you're going to avoid a lot of those painful out-of-pocket expenses, like dealing with mold in the crawl space, or dealing with the furnace that went out prematurely because it literally never had the furnace filter cleaned on it. So we're talking about a lot of home maintenance items, but especially with foundations, because if you're on a crawl space, you're on a block or a brick foundation, and you're not getting that water away, you're going to inevitably, over a period of time, and a relatively brief period of time, have big problems. And
Yep.
those are things that you can just very simply avoid with a little preventative maintenance. It's no different, Greg, than changing the oil in your car. Why do some cars last for 300,000 miles? Because they probably get their oil changed every 5,000 or whatever the manufacturer recommends, right?
Right.
And if you do that, you're going to get longer use. And people's houses are no different than that. And even the expensive components of your house, like the HVAC system, the roof, the foundation, the electrical, all that stuff has to be maintained and serviced. And those are a lot of things that if you watch enough YouTube videos, you can maybe figure it out. If not, we can certainly get you connected with the right contracting partners that can. So
the next item that I want to hit on, and you just kind of briefly mentioned it, you don't need to watch a YouTube video. You just need to make a phone call. And that is getting your HVAC system serviced.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a licensed HVAC contractor come out, inspect your system. I have an all-electric heat pump. So people make the bad assumption that with an all-electric heat pump, you don't have to do a lot to it unless it breaks. And that's not true. You have a contractor come out. They're going to inspect your AC unit. They're going to clean the fins, make sure everything's running properly, check the evaporator coils inside the system, stuff that the average person should not do themselves, right?
Absolutely.
But it needs to be done, because what happens inevitably, and you can talk to my buddy Mike Warren at Warren Mechanical or any HVAC contractor, and they'll tell you, people wait until it breaks. And then when it's 95 degrees outside and their stuff's broken, so are 1,000 other people's.
Yep.
You want service today, they're backed up for a week. You know what I mean? So take care of those preventative maintenance items now. Another thing we can do that I want to talk about that'll take us inside and outside the house is clean your windows.
It is amazing the difference that clean windows make. It's one of those things where you don't always think about that, right? Thinking about things that maybe get neglected every year. Well, this was going back to just 3-4 months ago. I bought a house that we are redoing to turn around and resell here when everything's get back to normal again. And with this, we just simply cleaned the windows, and it was amazing. Absolutely amazing how just a little Lysol on both sides of the window, not just the insides. It changed everything. So
oh yeah,
it went from like it wasn't bright in here to it was kind of bright, and it's kind of the same thing with your car, right? If you don't clean both sides of that, you just don't realize the impact and how much light loss is there sometimes. So anyway, I just went through that personally, so I geeked out on that one. Sorry.
And no, that's awesome. And one of the best things to use to clean windows, my grandma used to do this, is hot water and vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
It stinks. She used to clean the inside of the car windows with them and then drive me somewhere. But it stinks for a minute, but it does a hell of a job. And while you're doing your windows on the outside, look around where the window meets either the siding, the trim, the brick, the stone, whatever, the other surface, and go ahead and caulk that if you start seeing cracks or whatever. Because again, just like we talked about with siding and the roof and the foundation, we want to stop water infiltration wherever we can, right?
That's the goal. That's simply the goal. I mean, when you stop the water, you stop so many of the other problems that ultimately, end up, happening because of water getting in areas where it shouldn't over extended period of time. So let's also talk about, this time of the year, we mentioned power washing, some of the siding and stuff like that earlier. It's also a great time to do that, with your deck. This is a great time of the year to start getting deck projects done. I know a lot of times they want to see, staining done, when the temperatures are a little bit warmer. I think we've kind of reached that threshold now for a lot of people. So it's really that time of year where you can start getting a lot of that exterior work done. So tell us about that. What are maybe if somebody needs to get the algae off their house, or they need to, get their deck stained, restained or repainted, is there any chemicals that they need to use or detergents they need to use, or is it just something a good old power washer will do in itself, Greg?
The cool thing about that in the modern world we live in is we don't have to invent stuff. And what I mean is, for cleaning a deck, for getting the moss off of it, or just in general, getting it ready for stain, they make, I thought I had a bottle still up on the shelf. I'm out in the shop and I don't anymore. I was going to bring it over and use water. But you can go to any big box store, any home repair retailer, or whatever you want to call it, and you can grab a gallon of literally deck power washer. Mm-hmm. It's a detergent based cleaner that will clean all the crap off your deck. It's maybe, I think the last time I bought a jug, it was like 18 or 20 bucks for a jug of it. That was enough for me to do 3 decks with, back when I was a contractor. So you do that. Now, the important thing to remember before you stain, after you've power washed it, is you have to let it dry. Not power wash it in the morning and then you're good to go that afternoon. You need to wait a couple days. All right.
I made that mistake once, Greg. Wasted a lot of paint. Ended up having to re-power wash. It was a bad afternoon. So,
and here's the other thing. When I was building decks, back when I was a contractor, and I went through a couple summers where I'd build them one after another. It was crazy. And I would talk to people about, okay, you wanted a wood deck, pressure treated southern yellow pine or cedar, whatever, but you wanted wood. Here's what you have to do to maintain this deck. And it's about sealing, it's about staining when it's appropriate. If I built a deck first week in November this past year, hopefully my homeowner didn't try to seal it, because all that, especially a pressure treated deck, because all that moisture's got to get out, right? But here's the problem. People get a deck built, it looks nice, it smells nice, whatever, and fresh cut wood smells nice. But anyway, and they don't do the maintenance. And so 3-4 years down the road, their deck's starting to rot. It's starting to pull away. And I'll tell you a quick story. I did a deck for a lady. It was about 7 years ago now. And I gave her a list. I had gotten to the point where I printed out a list of what you need to do based on when I built your deck, right, over the next 12 months. She didn't do any of it. 4 years after I built this deck, I got a call from her. She wanted me to come look at it. So I did. It looked like hammered crap. She wanted me to replace all the deck boards at no charge. She had done nothing. She hadn't sealed it, stained it, washed it. I mean, nothing. So wood is a product that can be outside. And we've got 200-year-old homes in the city that have wood siding that still looks great, but you have to take care of it.
Yep.
And now, since we're all sequestered at home and you have nothing better to do, take care of the deck. That's all I'm saying. I'll get off my soapbox.
Greg's passionate about the deck projects. I get that completely. But when you do take care of things like that, it's, not only an inexpensive way to protect the investment you just made, which is obviously important to everybody, but, hell, it's going to look better for a long, long time. And things like that are expensive to replace. So simply put, protect your deck. Let's move to the rest of the outside. I know there's some topics here that a lot of people are excited about. It's not specifically my alley. I prefer brand new stuff that's maybe a condo that has no yard. That works better for my personality. But I know there's a lot of people that really enjoy the yard, that enjoy gardening. My mom's one. She literally, her entire backyard is a garden. She loves growing the stuff. I love going over there and getting my jalapenos and habanero peppers. But nevertheless, it's not for me. But so much cool stuff you can do with your yard. There's so many people that have really taken advantage of this. I know so many people that are growing nice gardens now so they can make their own salsas. I mean, there's all these cool things people are doing with outdoor space right now. So let's dive into that. What are some of the things that people can do to not only protect their lawn, make sure that they're getting the most out of that, but also maybe creative ways to use that outdoor space when it comes to gardens, flowers, et cetera?
Well, the first thing we need to talk about is something that we all should have done in the fall after our last cut. Have you cut your lawn yet this year?
I haven't called anybody to cut my lawn yet this year.
I got a mower you can borrow.
No, I'm good.
Anyway, one of the first things, if you didn't do it over the fall, you need to change the oil in your mower. Make sure the deck's all clean. The underside, where the blade is, you want to sharpen the blade. You want to put fresh gas in it. And every spring, the underside, I spray down with WD-40, the whole inside of where the blade is. It's a trick I learned from my dad when I was a kid, watching him do it. So that's the first thing if you haven't done it yet. Change your spark plug too while you're at it. It's like $2.
That helps a lot. Most people don't think of that, but it does help a lot.
Yeah. So, because you're going to start mowing, right? Or hire it. One of the things that I encourage people to do right now before stuff gets too alive and overgrown is go ahead and edge your sidewalks and your driveway. Now, you can get a gas power edger for $200 or $300, a walk behind. You can use your weed eater, a string trimmer, unless it's really, really bad, and then it'll take a while. You can use a ditch spade, just a flat shovel. They're narrow and they're long and flat, about like that. They also make these edgers. They're really cool. I don't have one. My older brother does, though, but it's a wheel, and then it's got a cutting blade that sticks out further in the wheel. Mm-hmm. And it's on a long pole, and you just walk along and manually cut it. Either way, now's the time of the year to do that. You also want to start your spring program right now. Now, what do I mean by spring program?
I have no idea.
Weed, feed, grub control. I spent a good chunk of my 20s in the lawn and landscape world, and I just love it. I still, when I drive down the road and there's been a fresh application somewhere and my window's down and I can smell it, I just breathe it in, all that pendimethalin. Now, but you want to fertilize and do weed control, preferably granular. And you also want to do a grub control if you're in an area prone to grubs. Now, grubs really, really like bluegrass roots. So if you have a lot of bluegrass in your lawn, and you may not know whether you do or not, typically in Indiana, lawns are largely fescue, rye, and bluegrass with some zoysia here and there, which zoysia is a nasty grass, which is actually most of my backyard. But anyway, there are also organic lawn care programs now. We can use organic fertilizers. There are organic weed controls. And I'll say this, and I'll quit droning. I get geeked out when I talk about lawns, but one of the best things you can do to eliminate or prevent weeds in your lawn is to have your grass as thick as possible. One of the best ways to do that is to skip the chemicals this spring. Don't put down any weed control, no grub control. Aerate your lawn. You can rent an aerator for like $60 for a day, and then overseed and then fertilize. The thicker your grass is, the less room there is for weeds. I'll stop talking.
And that is Lawn and Landscape 101 and 201 course right there. So we'll be charging everybody's credit card $29.95 here in a few minutes. So anyway, so now as we kind of wrap this episode up here, just kind of recapping, I think we can both agree, Greg, that so much of all of this home maintenance really starts up top. You've got to control what happens with the water. That starts on your roof. That starts with your gutters, making sure things are draining appropriately, getting it away from your foundation to avoid some of those challenges. If there are things, that are starting to create challenges with the foundation, you talked about those, the cracks and, the mortar joints. You talked about, we talked about the shaling brick. If you have a brick foundation, we talked about getting somebody in your crawl space, right? Just to take a look at things and, where you at, having those 6-month tune-ups on every single component of your house, including, the HVAC system, right? Having somebody come out and take a look at that stuff, and then, YouTubing and figuring out what else do you need to do to maybe, Greg mentioned some power wash stain to keep things clean, the vinegar route, to, clean the windows. So there's definitely a lot of things that you can do to take advantage of the time that we all have right now to get your home in tip top shape. So that way, when things are back to normal a little bit, we can get it sold for you.
And I got to mention one more thing. And there's a couple other things we were going to talk about. We'll save to next episode when it gets a little closer. But I got to talk about flowers and mulch.
All right, let's talk flowers and mulch.
And the reason is, look, we all love this time of the year when everything starts coming alive and turning green again, right? What a better way to add some color, some bright, vibrant colors to your exterior, to your landscape, than by planting some flowers.
What kind of flowers are the easiest to plant that require the least maintenance? Because I have to plant flowers, so I'm going to ask a selfish question right here.
Pansies.
Pansies.
Seriously,
pansies.
You can get them in so many different colors. They're not expensive at all. They're easy to plant. You go about that deep in the soil, pack them in. I usually put a sprinkle of organic fertilizer in them, get them a little bit of water, and boom, they take off. And they stay beautiful and colorful for several weeks. While you're planting those flowers, Ryan, let's go ahead and get some mulch down. Now, here's my big pet peeve with mulch.
Uh-oh.
And if you're watching, I'm talking to you. Do not use stained mulch.
What kind of mulch should we use?
Anything natural. I use a mulch. It comes out black, but it's not stained black. But it is just a peat mulch. Because part of the reason for mulch is to keep moisture in the soil for the plants. Part of it is to as the mulch breaks down, then those micronutrients get down into your soil and into your plants. If you use stain mulch, you've just taken a natural product and dumped a bunch of chemicals on it and then put it in your lawn. Why in the hell would you do that?
Well, they don't tell you about that when you buy it. It looks good on the packaging. So
anyway.
So there you have it. There's your tip to top off the show right there. So.
Yeah, I think that's probably enough for today. I would like to thank Jason for holding down the fort there in the studio while we're physically absent from his glorious presence. And I'd like to thank again our sponsor, Stacy Mayo and the Scott Miller team at Ruoff Mortgage. And Ryan, thank you for your good cheer and being here.
Oh, it's always a good time, Greg. So that'll do it for the latest edition of Blue Collar Real Estate. If there's anything else you need from Greg or I, all of our contact info will be below. And if you took anything away from this, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. Always enjoy hearing from people, getting feedback, and give us some new topics to do the show on as we keep this train moving forward. So thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, guys.